The next thing that we're going to be learning about in this course is arrays. Arrays are significantly different from numbers and strings. You can't make the most out of programming in PHP without understanding what arrays are and how to use them. In this section of the course, we're going to cover arrays pretty extensively. I'm going to introduce you to the concept of using arrays, we're going to talk about the basics, and then we're going to cover something called multi-dimensional arrays. And we'll also be looking at some of the array-related functions. Finally, we'll look at an array string conversion and a demonstration of how to create an array from an HTML form. So what is an array exactly? Well, arrays constitute a complicated but very useful notion. Whereas numbers and strings are scalar variables, meaning they always have only a single value. An array is a collection of multiple values assembled into one overriding variable. An array can consist of numbers and/or strings and/or other arrays, which allow this one variable to hold more information than a simple string or number can. For example, if you wanted to store something like a shopping list, you could use an array to store all of the elements of your shopping list in one container. We wouldn't want to simply be creating a new variable with a new string every time we wanted to add an item to our shopping list. That approach would make it difficult to refer back to the entire list or any specific value later on in our coding process. We can greatly simplify matters by placing the entire list into one array. So you can think of an array as a list that can be added to, sorted, searched, and so forth. We've already been using some arrays in this course. The arrays that we've been using are referred to as superglobals. They're things like server, get, and post. These are all special arrays that are known as superglobals. Other examples of superglobals are cookie, session, and env. As you know, the post array receives all of the data that's sent to the page from a form that uses the post method. Its indexes are in the names of form elements, and its values are the values of those particular form elements. Therefore, when we use something like $_post, and then in the square braces we put something like name, it's referring to the value that's typed in a form input created by that specific code. Similarly, when we use the get superglobal, it's going to refer to data that was sent from a form using the get method, or from data otherwise passed in the URL. The cookie superglobal is going to refer to data that's stored in a cookie, and the session is going to refer to data stored in a session. Env is kind of like the server. It contains values that pertain to the computer on which PHP is running. The other variable types that you've dealt with, numbers and strings, they have a variable name and a corresponding value. So we've used something like first name, and we make that equal to Sam. Arrays also have a name. It's derived using the same conventions. Arrays will always begin with a $. They'll continue with a letter or underscore, and they're going to finish with any combination of letters, numbers, or an underscore. But arrays differ in that they contain multiple elements. An element consists of an index or a key. The two words can be used interchangeably, and they also contain a value. We use an array's index as a reference point to the values. An array can use either numbers or strings as its keys, or it could use both, depending on how you set up the array. The formal method of creating an array is to use the array function. The syntax looks like this. Arrays automatically begin their indexing at 0 unless otherwise specified. So in this example, which doesn't specify an index for any of the elements, the first item is blueberries, and it's automatically going to be indexed at 0. The second item is papaya, and it will be indexed at 1. And the third is strawberries, which will be indexed at 2. We can also assign the index when using the array, and I'll show you how to do this a little bit later. It also is possible to create arrays using the short array syntax. An example of that is this line of code right here. And what you do when you're using the short array syntax is you simply use the square brackets instead of a call to the array function. When you create arrays, you can easily create line returns and indents to make the array a little bit more legible. As you create more complex arrays, you might want to create your arrays using line breaks and indents. Generally, when you use an array, it's going to look the same as any other variable, except that you're going to include a key inside of the square brackets. The key is going to reference particular values. In this case, we could use fruit to refer to the array as a whole, and we could use fruit with the 1 inside the square braces to point to a specific element in the array. So now that you have a quick overview of what arrays are and some of the general syntax, we'll be looking at how we can use these within our projects in the upcoming videos in this section of the course.